Do you remember when every movie had a video game? Back in the early 2000s, it felt like there was a video game for almost every movie released that year. From animated movies like Disney and DreamWorks, to franchises like Harry Potter and Marvel, there truly was a game for everyone's favorite movie. And you could find these licensed games on almost any console. The quality of these games definitely ranged from incredibly fun and iconic to absolute abominations that would make you rage quit. Either way, they made for so many nostalgic memories that so many adults reflect on fondly to this day. My name is Maya Faith, and this is your dose of 2000s nostalgia. Today we are going to take a look back on movie tie-in video games, specifically from the early 2000s, and talk about what made them so great, what made them so bad, and answer the overall question, where did they all go? And definitely stick around to the end, because if you don't see one of your favorites listed in the beginning, it could be because I saved it for the category of worst movie tie-ins, in which case I will just apologize ahead of time. Licensed video games have actually been around since the 80s, with games made for movies like Star Wars, Tron, or Alien. From what I counted, there were over 70 licensed games made in this decade. In 1982, Atari published a video game for the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which is actually known as one of the worst video games ever made. But that didn't stop licensed games from being made. In fact, it was just the beginning. By the time we reached the 90s, over 150 more of these movie video games were created. And once we hit the 2000s, it felt like an endless amount of these games were released on PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo consoles, and more. Today, we're going to mainly focus on talking about console games, as those are the ones that I'm personally more familiar with, and I figured if you all enjoy this video, I can always make another video about the handheld versions of these games as well. Disney was one of the biggest companies to involve themselves in the world of licensed video games. From CD-ROMs in the early 2000s to crunchy flash games online. Whether you love or hate Disney, they were such a huge part of 90s and 2000s kids' childhoods when it came to video games. And the console games, especially Pixar, were so nostalgic. The Incredibles game is probably the most popular, and for good reason. The game will start the player off with a cutscene from the beginning of the movie, which leads you to being able to control the main character, Mr. Incredible. From here, you'll help to guide Mr. Incredible across the city as he is on a mission to take down the evil Bon Voyage. Why does Bon Voyage sound like Dr. Doofenshmirtz?
You'll never get us! Au revoir!
You'll jump across buildings, fight off enemies, and flip switches as Samuel L. Jackson yells at you. The game actually follows the movie structure pretty well, as each level progresses into another plotline from the film with cutscenes in between, and each level will allow you to play and control another member of the Incredibles family. This was actually such a cool concept as a kid. Each member of the family has their own unique powers, so you'll be able to use their special skills as you continue on your missions. Mr. Incredible has super strength to fight off the bad guys and throw heavy objects. Elastigirl can swing from place to place and grab faraway enemies with her elastic abilities. Dash can use his super speed to run through areas lightning quick, and Violet can use her invisibility powers to sneak past enemies. As someone who loved superheroes as a kid, the ability to play with all of these different characters with their own unique powers was so much fun. I especially loved the Dash levels, as I'm sure many of you did. I played this late to school level so many times that at one point I had every single obstacle memorized. You'll control Dash as he's flying down the streets trying to beat the bus to school while you trip over potholes and avoid random cars and trucks that jump out in front of you. You can also end up burning up if you speed up too quickly, so you need to maintain a certain speed in order to pass the level as well. I know a lot of people found this level to be frustrating and stressful, but I remember being a lot more stressed out playing the 100-mile Dash level. But you did get to run on the water, so that was cool at least. Speaking of stress, I thought the Omnidroid levels were incredibly hard. Get it? Incredible, incredibly, incredible. I could never beat them myself and always had to have my dad help me, which usually would result in him rage quitting the game too. Listen, this was all a part of the experience. This game was the ultimate rage quit game, but it was a game I still always went back to anyways, no matter how many times it beat my 7-year-old dignity into the ground. While the game ended up with mixed reviews from critics, which I'm assuming most of these movie tie-in games probably did, I feel like this was definitely one of the better ones. The levels were challenging, maybe too challenging for a kid, but even if I felt frustrated with it and couldn't progress further, I still continued to go back and play previous levels just for fun. The superhero music and goofy dialogue added a bit of charm, and I really enjoyed how the gameplay would switch up with each character. Definitely one I would love to challenge myself to play again as an adult today, and would probably still fail. Speaking of another Pixar video game that I would probably still fail today, the Finding Nemo video game was one of my favorites. Again, you'll start off with the beginning of the movie on Nemo's first day of school. This game also follows the structure of the movie, which I always enjoyed when the licensed games did this. You'll see as we go on that that's just not always the case. You, as the player, will control Nemo swimming through bubble rings, darting through rocks, picking up colorful pebbles and moving them around to progress to the next area, and bouncing on these little sea sponges, which I very much enjoyed doing as a kid. Nemo's dad, Marlin, will pretty much boss you around and tell you what you need to accomplish, and will just constantly rebel against whatever he says.
I think she got lost in the caves. I'll help you find her.
Don't even think about it. It's either school or back home for you.
Like, this child is lost. Why won't you let me help her? Actually, you're the adult here. Shouldn't that be your job? Well, no. This small clownfish child will pretty much just do all of the work for now. And every time I do, I just get yelled at again.
What are you doing? You could have been hurt.
I honestly really enjoyed swimming around in this game. The main gameplay is made up of side-scrolling as you swim from location to location. There are missions where you're racing or being chased by an enemy, or you're bouncing from one platform to another, whether that be on top of jellyfish or underwater bombs. You would think with the game that's mainly underwater that the gameplay would be a bit limited, but I feel like the developers did a great job of adding a lot of variation between levels. You weren't just aimlessly swimming around. You would stop clam enemies from attacking you by trapping them in these bubbles and darting through them. The clam noises are honestly triggering to me. You would collect these krill that would be attached to you and used as extra life, and each time you completed a small minigame during the level, you would get a little animation of the character with a star, making you feel all accomplished. Now, if you thought the Incredibles game was stressful, this was much worse. At least to me, this was much worse. After you play through the early school levels, you'll eventually play as Nemo being chased by the masked diver. Is this not horrifying? And you know you ultimately get caught anyway. Okay, and it actually gets worse than this, because after Nemo is captured, you'll play as Marlin and the game will decide to get so much more difficult for no reason. The Dory chase took years off of my life. She is so ridiculously fast, and after spending so much time trying to catch up with her, once you finally do, you have to do it again. Not only again, but 3 separate times. It was torture. And the Bruce chase. After this, you play as Dory and you have to keep up with Bruce and Marlin as he's guiding you to the minefield. And this part stressed me out so badly because if you don't keep up with Bruce, he'll turn around with black eyes and make this horrifying sound. I was truly frightened as a small child. And if you ran into any of these underwater bombs, Dory and Marlin would get blown up. This is a game for children. Yeah, and there were multiple death animations too. Attacked by clams, electrocuted, gassed to death. Honestly, it was kind of cool that they decided to make all of these different animations for the game. It definitely added more interest. I'll give them that. And if you thought I was done complaining, you are surely mistaken. But Maya, I thought you said this is one of your favorite games. It is. I love this game, but God, after all of this, the game also has you doing incredibly hard puzzles. I was probably stuck on these puzzles longer than I was at the other levels I just mentioned. My brain could not compute what to do here. I even remember trying this game again as a teenager and still struggling all of those years later. Okay, I'm sorry. I realize it just sounds like I'm repeatedly bashing on this game. The truth is, I still genuinely love this one. Even though I struggled through a lot of the missions and failed many times, this was one of my first video games to ever own as a child, and I have really happy memories playing this game. My favorite Pixar movie is Monsters Monsters, Inc. Actually, it's one of my all-time favorite movies, but I never got to experience the video game. Well, it turns out there's actually two main games that people tend to bring up into the movie tie-in conversation, so I wanted to discuss both. Let's start with the official Monsters, Inc. video game. Remember when I said sometimes the movie tie-ins don't exactly follow the structure of the movie? It's kind of the case for this one. You'll start playing as Sully, running, jumping, and climbing across platforms in Monsters Incorporated. Mr. Waternoose wants Sully to help out with the new scarers, so you're first tasked with helping Mr. Bile find his manual. And from here on out, you're pretty much sent on a bunch of search and find missions. You're searching and finding key cards. You're searching and finding Boo multiple times. She's just always going missing in this game, which I guess is pretty accurate to the movie. Sully also has the ability to attack enemies by scaring them and whipping his tail around. It's pretty much the same gameplay in nearly every mission, avoiding and fighting off enemies as you try to find something you need. I think it's pretty cool that in certain levels with Boo, her laugh will affect the electricity like in the movie. I thought that was a cute little detail. I think it would have been nice if you had the ability to play as other characters, or there was just a little bit more variety in the gameplay. The cutscenes could be better. The music is a little over the top in my opinion. I feel like I would have been a bit overstimulated with this blasting in my ear, but overall it still looked like a solid movie tie-in platformer game, nothing too groundbreaking. But I've heard that the Scream Team game is a bit of a fan favorite. You may have heard two different names for this game, Scream Team in North America or Scare Island in Europe. This one is a bit different. While the previous one we looked at somewhat follows the main plot of the movie, this one is actually a prequel to the first movie, while also being a sequel to Monsters University in a way. You'll start off the game by selecting Sully or Mike to play as. The main plot of the game is that the two of them were chosen to go to Waternoose's private training facility known as Scare Island, where they can train to become top scarers. Roz will host a basic training for the player to learn how to jump, attack, and scare. And that is about all you really need to know. From here on out, you'll be sent to several different locations where your objective is to scare all of these robot children so you can successfully graduate from your monster training. For me, it was a little bit more boring to watch this gameplay as it kind of felt a bit repetitive, but it might just be one of those games that's way more fun to just play yourself. I know a lot of people remember this game very fondly, and I can definitely see why it's so nostalgic for them. Now, Pixar wasn't the only animation company to release licensed video games. One of my absolute favorites was actually from Blue Sky with a movie called Robots. This was one of my favorite movies to watch as a kid. I remember the day I saw it in theaters with my dad, and it was actually the first time I ever cried while laughing. It was the Britney Spears scene, if you remember that. This movie had too many good moments.
Where's Big World?
So you can imagine how excited I was when little me found out that there was a video game for the PlayStation 2. You'll follow the main character, Rodney Copperbottom, as his dad starts off narrating the story. He'll explain the basic plot of the movie, and then you'll jump right into the game. The player will control a young Rodney as you run around Rivet Town collecting scrap. I genuinely really enjoyed the platforming aspects of this game as a kid. I used to have so much fun jumping around, sliding from building to building, and collecting these little scrap pieces. Sometimes you were pulling levers or being lifted into the air by vents in the ground. You're also given a wrench at the beginning, which my friend and I had too much fun laughing our asses off and just bashing the shit out of things with it. You can also kick, which we also would run around and just kick everything we could find. Once you learn the basics as young Rodney, he'll get his grow-up parts and will continue on his journey collecting scrap to create some new inventions, which will pretty much just be weapons to use against bad robots. Yeah, running around and attacking random evil robots was not a part of the movie's plot at all. One of my absolute favorite parts of this game, though, was the voice acting. As you play as Rodney, you can run over to the random robot citizens, and they'll always have something out of pocket to say.
My wife says I drink too much oil. The heck does she know? I sent her a whole bouquet of rose cogs. She still won't talk to me. I got stressed.
One of my favorite lines that I would play over and over again was when you would run out of bounds over to where this construction robot guy was, and he would just scream at you.
Hey, kid, where do you think you're going? This street's closed for today's parade. Get out of here.
I also remember being confused because sometimes the voices would not match the robot that was supposed to be talking to you. Like, I would run over to this older lady robot and she would sound like this.
I would just die if my friends saw me talking to you. I'd just say that you asked me for some money or something.
And then then I would find her again in another location and she would sound like this.
I'm waiting for someone better.
I had so much fun playing this game, but I have to admit, I had fun up until you get to the main city, which was pretty much like the second level of the game. Yeah, I could literally never get past this area in the game no matter how hard I tried, which was really disappointing for me because I remembered seeing a level where you could play as Big Weld rolling from place to place, and I was never able to get that far. Overall, I really enjoyed this one as a kid. I've heard that this game is a borderline reskin of Ratchet and Clank, which I wouldn't be able to say for sure considering I've never actually played a Ratchet and Clank game. You'll have to let me know in the comments what the similarities were. But you know what? For a licensed game, I also think Robots was one of the better ones. Shrek 2, one of the greatest animated movies of all time, and apparently one of the best movie tie-in games of all time. Well, at the very least, it seems to be a fan favorite. I only ever briefly played the beginning of this game, but from what I remembered playing, it was an enjoyable time. The player starts off tasked with helping Shrek and his friends collect various items to pack for their trip to Far, Far Away. Shrek 2 is actually a multiplayer experience, so you and your friends can fight over which characters you want to play as. You'll start off as Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, and Gingy, but this can later change to other characters as well. Each of the characters has their own special attacks and abilities, which would make it more fun for kids to choose who they want to be. Why are there 7 dwarves trapped on Shrek's property? One minute you're fighting off the merry men from the first Shrek movie, and the next you're collecting fairies for this leprechaun man? It's best to just not ask questions. While none of what you're doing makes any sense to the storyline, it really doesn't need to. The gameplay just looks like so much fun. And I'm sure you may be wondering, does this game at all take place in Far, Far Away? Yes, eventually. After spending over a half an hour fighting off random enemies in Shrek's swamp and zooming through the spooky forest in an onion carriage, you'll finally make it to Far, Far Away. And now you're just wreaking havoc through the streets again. The game is also narrated by the Magic Mirror, who also makes some out-of-pocket statements throughout.
Harold made it clear he wanted Fiona to marry Prince Charming and wasn't so fond of his fat, disgusting, nose-picking son-in-law.
Honestly, the game is just goofy and fun, and I feel like I would have had so many good memories playing this as a kid if I had the chance to. I would have loved to play this one with my younger siblings. This game actually had much higher ratings than most of the other titles we've gone through so far. I haven't heard too much about the other Shrek games though. I just know this one was the most popular, so definitely let me know if the other games are worth checking out. Another DreamWorks movie from my childhood that I would consider to be an underrated classic is Over the Hedge. My family and I still quote lines from this movie to this day.
Hey, Nancy, stop your honking.
The video game, on the other hand, is an interesting one. The game actually starts you off towards the end of the movie instead of the beginning. It's another multiplayer experience as well, so you and your friend can begin the game as RJ and Vern sneaking into the human's house to steal food. Who the hell is this bird? Rufus? This bird is not in the movie. Okay, fun fact, I guess he was a character who was cut from the movie, so that's cool. You'll help RJ and Vern disarm traps, steal food from the house, and bash random objects with a golf club. Hammy can be used to disarm traps as well. I remember I struggled so much with the Hedge mission, where Hammy and Vern have to avoid being zapped by the exterminator and clawed by the bear. And once the first mission is done, the game will continue on 1 year later after the movie ends. So it's almost like getting a sequel, kind of. The rest of the game is pretty much the same continued gameplay, fighting off enemies and avoiding laser beams in various different locations. This one was so much fun to play with your friends though. It's not the best licensed game ever, but it definitely made for some good memories. While I've personally never played it myself, I've heard a lot of good things about the Madagascar video game. And I love the Madagascar movies, especially the second one, but I've mainly heard good things about the first Madagascar video game. This is also another loose adaptation that starts off with Marty explaining how he wants to leave the New York Zoo and escape to the wild. I was actually kind of surprised at the little fourth wall break at the beginning.
Press the jump button to... I think by now we're up to speed on jumping there, Evil Knievel.
That was kind of funny. And right away the game allows you to start learning the controls while playing each of the main characters. Marty learns how to kick, Alex learns how to double jump, Gloria learns how to tumble, and Melman learns how to do this spin attack thing. There are also random mini games happening, like racing and fishing. This is all happening within like the first 15 minutes of the game, so if I were a kid, I know I would be having a blast. You'll continue to switch through playing each character as they escape the zoo, run rampant through the streets of New York, and eventually end up in Madagascar. I remembered seeing these jungle and beach levels in the trailer for this game, and I remember I really wanted to play them. The music in this game is also pretty good. Sometimes music can get a bit too obnoxious, obnoxious in movie tie-ins, but I thought this was a vibe most of the time, and the cutscenes weren't too bad. I actually thought the voice actors did a pretty decent job trying to replicate the original cast. I really think I would have enjoyed this one as a kid. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie game, another classic. I was absolutely obsessed with SpongeBob as a kid, and I watched the movie repeatedly. I remember when I walked into GameStop one day as a kid, and I saw a PlayStation 2 game with SpongeBob on the cover, and I thought, this is it. This is the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game. I brought it home with excitement, and I popped the game into the PlayStation 2, only to find out that it was Battle for Bikini Bottom, which I'm not mad at, just an FYI, because that game is incredible. I love that game so much, but I still didn't ever get to experience the actual SpongeBob movie game. In most of these licensed games, the intro will usually consist of clips from the actual movie or narration of some kind to get the player up to speed on what's going on. For this one, the developers chose to use images from the movie to explain what's happening instead, which is a choice. From what I was able to read online, this video game was actually released about a month before the movie came out in theaters in 2004, so they probably did not have the rights to actually use the movie footage at the time. I guess if you had picked the game up before the movie release, you would have been met with some spoilers. I guess I wasn't fully missing out because so much of the gameplay is taken directly from Battle for Bikini Bottom. The player will start the game out as SpongeBob as he arrives to help out the crime scene at the Krusty Krab. And by crime scene, I just mean that this guy didn't have cheese on his Krabby Patty. Truthfully, that would be a crime for me too. The player can control SpongeBob by jumping, using a spin attack to fight off enemies, flipping switches, and collecting manliness points rather than the shinies we collected in the previous game. After the first mission, you'll play as Patrick learning his different moves as well. Some other similarities to Battle for Bikini Bottom are the trampolines, the slides, the ability to throw objects and fast travel with boxes throughout the different areas. Okay, so gameplay-wise, it's all very similar. I have heard that some of the gameplay and attack moves were updated to be a bit better in this version though. Listen, if it's anything like Battle, then it's a fun game. And you have the added bonus of the SpongeBob movie storyline throughout as well. Another thing that I do remember from this game that I really wanted to be able to do was drive around with the paddy wagon. This just looked like so much fun to me as a kid. And of course, there's the really funny dialogue.
It's called the Smash.
And there are some challenging bosses to fight off. Overall, this is a really great one. I'm not necessarily sure if I would say it's better than Battle, but I know that's definitely up for debate. Let me know which of the two games you prefer. And of course, animated movies were not the only ones to get their own licensed games. There were so many live action movies that were turned into video games too, like the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lord of the Rings franchise, Transformers, and so many more. But I think one of the most nostalgic series of movie video games are the Harry Potter games. I was a huge Harry Potter fan as a kid, and the idea that I could run around Hogwarts as one of these characters and casting magical spells was insane to little me. I feel like the first Harry Potter game was super nostalgic and iconic for so many players back in the early 2000s. But the one I played the most, or at least attempted to play as a kid, was the third Harry Potter game, The Prisoner of Azkaban. It begins with a cutscene showing off the insanely epic PS2 graphics and show off the challenges that the characters will eventually face. You'll start off on the Hogwarts Express train playing as Harry and following Ron as he looks for Scabbers. The game will teach you how to cast a basic spell and move some objects around. You'll fight off Malfoy and his annoying friends, and then shit just goes down. Harry will slow down and the atmosphere and music intensifies. You'll hear horrifying screams, and then all of a sudden he passes out and you play as Ron dragging Harry through the train as Dementors come after you. This was genuinely scary to play as a child. I remember Ron drove me nuts in this game. He was always yelling at me for no reason.
Harry, did you have a look at the Folio Brutai that Lupin gave you then? Come on, let's have a look at it then. Show it to me. Come on, show me the Folio Brutai. We're not going anywhere until you've shown me the Folio Brutai.
And I also remember fighting off these pixies was so difficult and annoying. Weren't you guys supposed to just be in the second movie? What are you doing here? You may be thinking to yourself, Maya, you're talking a lot about the beginning of the game. What about the rest of it? Well, I didn't really get too far into the game. Shocker, I know. The game was hard for a kid, okay? There was a lot more puzzle solving than I would have liked. I just wanted wanted to cast spells and fly around on my broomstick. A lot of these licensed games were actually pretty tough for kids. It was very rare I actually beat one as a child, especially without my dad's help. But there was obviously a lot more to explore. You were able to switch between playing Harry, Ron, and Hermione as you solve puzzles and learn new spells. The ability to fly around on Buckbeak was also really cool. If only I had gotten that far. When the fourth movie came out in 2005, I obviously had to get that one too. And odds were I would have a much better chance progressing in this one, right? Right? God, it was so much worse. Again, the characters are screaming at me and stressing me out, and the mechanics were just awful. I was so excited when I loaded the game up and I saw that I had the option to select who I wanted to play as, and I obviously went for my girl Hermione. But this is so difficult for no reason, and boring. You're literally just running from place to place and using your wand to throw rocks and enemies around. I remember it feeling like such a drag. And this was another game I revisited in my teenage years and I wanted to try again, and I still struggled with it. Also, one of the most interesting parts of the fourth movie is the Triwizard Tournament, where Harry has to face a bunch of deadly challenges, which actually could have made for some interesting gameplay, but no. Apparently that's barely even in the game at all compared to the other stuff. Sorry, I realize I haven't said a single nice thing about this game. It's nostalgic, it's Harry Potter. That's all I've got. I honestly should have put this one under my worst movie game category. Let me know if you enjoyed this one. I might just be a hater because I struggled with it. Even if the games were difficult, I still have such a soft spot for them, and I would love to revisit them again as an adult. There are so many unhinged cutscenes in these games that don't happen in the movie.
You were going to Dumbledore, weren't you? Very well. The Cruciatus Curse.
The dialogue, the clunky gameplay, the frustration, all make for such iconic movie games. Let me know in the comments which one of these were your favorite. Speaking of iconic, I would argue that probably one of the best and most well-known of these licensed games were from the Spider-Man movie series. Specifically, the Tobey Maguire ones. We have to start by talking about the first Spider-Man movie. This intro into the game used to fuel me with so much excitement. It just got you so hyped up to play. The menu music was so good. I just love the music overall in this game, especially the subway theme. Before you jump into the main story of the game, there is actually a basic training tutorial you can play through, which I very much enjoyed as a kid because I thought that the narrator was so funny.
Up on the compass means forward to you. You follow me? Well, stop following me or I'll have you arrested.
Turns out the narrator is Bruce Campbell, which makes this part of the game even more hilarious. He'll teach you all of the basics of playing the game and occasionally roast you. At one point, he even leaves the simulation and comes back eating a sandwich. It's just too good. The game starts with Peter Parker explaining his origin story leading up to the death of his Uncle Ben. They were actually able to get Tobey Maguire to voice act, as well as Willem Dafoe, which just makes the game so much better in my opinion. It's not often the actual actors are in their own games, and they usually have to get voice actors that try to sound like them, and it can be pretty bad. The player will control Peter as he tries to track down the man that killed his uncle. You'll swing across New York City, climb buildings, and fight off these bad guys that have the best insults ever.
What's with the getup, chump? Looks like the freak wants to play. Circus in town?
I always tried to find the highest building to climb on, and I would try to jump onto the helicopters flying around. This game did a great job of following some of the main story of the movie, while also taking its own creative liberties and adding more exciting Spider-Man adventures. This was my first introduction to other iconic Spider-Man villains like Shocker, Scorpion, Vulture. God, did I hate Vulture. The cutscenes were also great. I'm glad they fully animated everything compared to most games that'll just insert clips from the movies. We really got to see more of an expanded world here with Tobey's Spider-Man. Again, the voice acting, top tier.
Go! You want a spike? He's probably in that old shipping warehouse. It's right on the river. That's all I know.
I could not understand a word that man said. I will say I remember the ending was a bit weird and rushed. Goblin just dies. Mary Jane comes over and kisses Peter through his mask. And then he's just like, yeah, that's my life.
That's my life. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed it, because I know I did.
His little go outside and play at the end was very cute though.
Looks like you're done now. Go outside and play.
So with my obsession with the first game and my love for the second Spider-Man movie, it only made sense to get the second Spider-Man game. This is probably the most popular and loved from the series, but I have to admit I barely played this one as a kid in comparison. I was really young trying to play these games, and when I got the second one, I realized the swinging mechanics were different from the first, and I had a really hard time with it. But what's funny is this is one of the reasons people really love this game. The swinging mechanics are a lot better and more realistic. There is actual physics involved. I'm just bad at video games, guys. I can admit that I'm not good at them. I still love them, but I'm not great. There's definitely a lot more freedom in this one too. You're able to actually be on the ground in New York, which was not a thing before. There are citizens walking around that you can actually help this time. The combat when you're fighting enemies is a lot better, and when bad guys would die in the first game, they would just disappear. But now they'll lay there and you can just sling them around with your spidey webs if you want to. You can just continue to repeatedly beat the shit out of them. Spider-Man can just be an absolute menace if you want.
Hey man, I think you got him.
The open world aspect is great, not necessarily graphics wise, but the overall size of the map is more expanded and detailed with a lot more to explore. We also got Bruce Campbell back to narrate, which is the most important thing in my opinion. And I'm sure you may be wondering about the story here too. Does it follow the Spider-Man 2 movie plot? Again, loosely. And we have some extra characters added to this game, like Rhino and Black Cat, who I was pretty excited about since it was rare for me to see a woman as a superhero back in the day. Oh, and I was also introduced to Mysterio for the first time too, which was pretty cool. And you know I'm going to say it, the voice acting again is great. Toby's back, Kirsten Dunst voices as MJ, and Alfred Molina is Doc Ock. What more can you ask for, really? And we got a proper cutscene ending this time that actually makes sense. So you would think the third one would be amazing coming off of the other two, right? Not exactly. Like the movies, this one is probably the worst of the two games. I'm not trying to roast the third Spider-Man movie. I actually really love that one, faults and all.
Look at little Goblin Jr. Gonna cry?
But from watching videos and reading comments from players, it seems like this game was a bit of a hot mess in comparison. I'm sure there were really high expectations coming off of the second game, and this one came out about 3 years later. So you would think the graphics and gameplay would be a bit better, but no, apparently not. This isn't to say it doesn't have its iconic Spider-Man charm though. Bruce Campbell once again makes a return. Pretty much the whole cast voice acted for this game, and of course we got some amazing cutscenes. I never played this one, but I'm glad at the very least I got to experience a bit of the second game and all of the first. Spider-Man for PlayStation 2 will always have a special place in my heart. Now, before we hop into some of the worst licensed games, I wanted to share one more underrated movie tie-in that I would probably rank as my all-time favorite. Well, at the very least, it's probably tied with Spider-Man. A series of unfortunate events. This is one of those movies where you're not quite sure how they're going to turn it into a video game, but in my opinion, I feel like they got really creative with this one. The game will begin with Lemony Snicket narrating the unfortunate story of the Baudelaire orphans who had just lost their parents in a fire that destroyed their entire home.
Parents have perished in a fire that destroyed your entire home.
Now they're sent off to live with Count Olaf, who will stop at nothing to get their fortune. It's a great book series and an amazing movie with Jim Carrey if you've never experienced it. 10 out of 10 recommend. The player will play as Violet, Klaus, or Sunny as they wander around Count Olaf's spooky mansion. Each character has their own special skill that can be used to help them as they navigate the house, with giant rats and creepy spiders around every corner. Violet is the inventor, so she'll come up with interesting contraptions that can be used to move across platforms or attack enemies. And I'm not just talking about the rats. I mean, there are actual boss fights in this game, which you really wouldn't expect if you watch the movie. Count Olaf's henchmen can be found in different areas of the house, and you'll have to beat the absolute shit out of them using the inventions this 14-year-old child made. One of my favorite parts of the game was playing as the baby Sunny. Sunny is small enough to crawl into small spaces, so you'll guide her along as she slides down pipes and chomps her way through wood and metal poles. I kid you not. Violet even builds her a jetpack later, which I just had way too much fun playing with. God, I hated the levels where you had to play as Violet on those stilts. You moved so slow and the steam would come right at you. There's so much I love about this game, from the dark and eerie music, to the creepy environments, to the many different gameplay styles involved. One moment you're crafting, the next you're solving a puzzle, then you're playing sick beats on a piano, and the next thing you know you're having a boss battle. There's so much to do in this cool and creepy world. I think they also did a great job of keeping the same vibes of the movie overall, without having to use actual cutscenes from the movie to tell the story. The narration still has that witty fourth wall breaking charm that Lemony Snicket brings with his storytelling, and I'm pretty sure Jim Carrey did actually voice Count Olaf in the game too. For me, I remember the only issues I had with this game were the levels towards the end. There's a level where you have to shoot peppermints at all of Count Olaf's henchmen and these godforsaken crabs, and it is incredibly hard for no reason. I tried over and over and over again to finally beat this level. I ended up playing it again later and really wanted to beat the game, and I was so excited to finally finish this. But the final battle was disappointing for me. It's another shooting level. It's not as hard as the previous one, but after having so many fun things to do during most of the game, this was a bit of a bummer. I remember feeling like the developers just kind of gave up towards the end, which I could understand considering these are rushed movie tie-in games and they need to get them out by specific dates. Either way, I still love this one, and I think it actually still holds up pretty well for a licensed movie game. Now, I would actually like to take the time to discuss some licensed games that I think are actually terrible. Compared to all of the fun games that we talked about earlier that I think have some redeeming qualities, these ones have none. Again, just in my opinion, and I sincerely apologize if any of these are your favorite. Shark Tale, a classic movie, a 10 out of 10 Oscar-nominated, award-winning film, in my eyes.
My sister had a baby, and I took it over because she passed away, and then the baby lost its legs.
I was so excited to play this one as a kid. I absolutely loved the movie, and then I got it on PlayStation 2, and I realized that I could not play this game. I don't know how anyone could. The first level is fine. I've already been traumatized by Finding Nemo, so this is a piece of cake at this point. You play as Oscar, the Will Smith fish, as you swim away from a shark. The second level, again, fine, kind of annoying. You have to circle Oscar around some falling furniture and don't allow it to hit the ground. The gameplay is similar to Finding Nemo, as you move side to side in the water and dart through obstacles. But in my opinion, it's a lot clunkier. So you're wandering around, circling Oscar around things to clean up the town for some reason, and then all of a sudden, they present you with the worst level in the game. And perhaps all of these movie games. The dance level. A Dance Dance Revolution style minigame begins, and you have to hit every single correct button in order to move forward. Every single one. And let me tell you, it's so hard and infuriating. You have to continuously try over and over to beat this dance level, as Can't Touch This is playing in the background. Let me tell you right now, I never beat this level. I couldn't beat it as a child. My dad couldn't beat it for me. Anyone that I had come over and play this game could not beat it. So working on this video was actually the first time I got to see what the rest of the game had in store, and there is another dance level. I would have been out after that. Somehow this game doesn't have the worst reviews ever, shockingly. The game is also playing Don't Worry by Sean Paul in the back, and I learned from a YouTube comment that it actually contains the word fuck in a kid's game. They just didn't notice. That might actually make me like the game a bit more. The next game that I hated as a child was The Polar Express. If you thought the original animation was nightmare fuel, you're in for a treat. I remember playing this game as a kid and roaming around this train and endlessly being attacked by toys. For no reason. This does not happen in the movie at all. I don't understand what they were trying to do here. They start you off with playing as the main character, trying to help the kids find their tickets for the train. Why am I being put to work? Can't these children find their own damn tickets? And I guess they wanted to ramp up the difficulty by having these annoying ass Jack-in-the-Box characters appear and attack you as you're running up and down the aisles. And then you're randomly kicking soccer balls and throwing food at these puppets. Not only was I annoyed playing this game as a kid, I was just straight up bored. The challenges truly felt endless. There are games that we've seen where there are added boss fights that are well done in my opinion, and this just isn't one of them. Why is there a big boss battle with this giant Scrooge puppet? I hate it. This game is not magical and full of whimsy like the movie. This is just pure pain. I already mentioned how bad the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory computer game was in my Lost Art of Computer Games video, so I'll spare you from going over it again, but I just wanted to mention it one more time because it was truly that bad. At least the PC version of it was. It may take the cake for the worst one that I personally played. For the grand finale, I am going to cheat a little bit and bring up a game that did come out in 2012, so not the early 2000s, but I think this one deserves a mention because of how truly bad it is. From what I hear at least, I never personally played it, but it looks not great. And it's really ironic too, because it's literally a movie about video games. I'm talking about Wreck-It Ralph on the Wii. It came out in 2012, so think about some of the licensed games that came out before this time. Think of the advancements in graphics there could have been by the time we reached 2012. This is what the Wreck-It Ralph game looks like. These are the cutscenes. What are these PNG photoshopped abominations on my screen? They aren't even the correct proportions. They could have put shadows under their feet. Their faces are straight out of my nightmares. It's also funny because the game opens with this cutscene, so it looks like it has promise, and then it goes straight into this. All of the budget for this game was put into the beginning and end cutscenes. Apparently the game is super short too, and only 12 levels long. This is a shame. If any movie should have been a video game, it's this one. And I feel like it could have been so good. Let me know in the comments which licensed game you think is the worst. By the time we reached the 2010s, the amount of movie tie-ins dropped significantly. The millennials and early Gen Zers who were playing these games were getting older and moving on to games that had more story, better gameplay, and graphics. I think that people just started to realize what these games actually were. Cash grabs from companies to market their movies. Many movie tie-ins were just not executed well and were rushed to meet the release of the movie. There's also only so much the developers could do with the gameplay when they're handed the movie story and plot, so the player is left with a lot of games that may feel the same or repetitive. So over time, these games became less and less, and by the time we hit the 2020s, they've practically died off, with only about 6 movie tie-in games that I personally counted releasing in the last 5 years. Even with a lot of the negativity that surrounds this topic, it doesn't change the fact that I truly love and even miss these ridiculous games. I appreciate them so much to this day, and I'm so glad I got to experience them as a child. I think one of the most special aspects of these games was the fact that because they were based off of movies, it would allow people who have seen and enjoyed the movie to be more interested in what the video game would look like. The player wasn't just thrown into an unknown world, they were thrown into a world that they already got to enjoy. And I feel like this idea really brought family and friends together. It allowed for my siblings and I to make a ton of memories playing inside the world of the movies we loved. Now we have so many nostalgic memories of us just laughing our asses off together at the goofy cutscenes or running around playing with these licensed characters and causing chaos. I truly couldn't ask for better childhood memories than that. Make sure to let me know which licensed games were your favorite, and I can't wait to hear about all of your memories in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. I'm always making nostalgic 2000s content, and every like and subscription just helps me out so I can continue to make more videos for you all. You can also check me out over on Instagram at myfaithdraws. Thank you all so much again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.